Hey everyone, sorry for not making a video in a long time. A lot of stuff has happened, just mostly good stuff, but I've been extremely busy. Secondly, sorry that there is so much background noise. I do have a fan on in an attempt to not melt in this weather, and it's not going very well so far. As you can probably imagine, it's really hot, and the fan is not doing a lot to help. So I have some news, and that news is that this afternoon I received a call to say that I am officially on the waiting list to receive my second guide dog. It was a big decision, deciding to reapply for a dog. My last dog retired 3 and a bit years ago now, and it was really hard. It was unexpectedly difficult to retire my dog, and then unfortunately we found out in December that she had cancer, and she had to be put to sleep around 2 weeks later. So it was a lot, and she lived with friends of mine in retirement, and she had this amazing retirement, which I'm so grateful for, but it was not an easy process for me. And I'm also a really competent cane traveler, and I travel so well with a cane, I feel so comfortable with a cane. There was a part of me that was kind of like, do I need a dog? And I still felt like that, do I actually need a dog? But I made the decision to go on the waiting list to receive a dog, and I went through a fairly lengthy process of assessments. So assessments examining my cane travel skills. I think I walked about 4 miles in my cane travel assessment in the end. You don't actually have to walk that long, but I was showing 2 routes and they were in two completely different directions. And then on Tuesday of this week I had another assessment, which was the dog assessment, where I walked with a guide dogs instructor, and they held one end of the harness, effectively mimicking kind of how a dog would pull on the harness, and I held the handle, and it was to really look at how do I walk with a dog, what is my ability to give commands to a dog, my understanding of commands, what's my walking speed, what's my understanding of a route when I'm walking it and not getting those landmarks that I get with my cane. So I went through that, and I found out this afternoon that I passed that assessment, and I am deemed suitable to go on the waiting list for a dog. That doesn't mean I'm getting a dog anytime soon. We're really looking at 2 years, I think, possibly more than 2 years, but I'm guessing at minimum 2 years, which is obviously quite a long time, but I'm very much okay with that timeline for myself, because I think it gives me plenty of time to prepare and to really look at how I can become the best dog handler I possibly can be. I don't think I was the best dog handler when I had my first dog, and I think a lot of that is maturity. I've changed a lot in the last 10 years. Most people change in 10 years, I would think. I was 18 when I got my first dog, and I'll probably be 30 or older when I get my second dog. So just massive changes in terms of who I am as a person, my level of maturity, my resilience, I think, has really increased as a person. My confidence has dramatically changed, and my skills as a blind person, and in terms of how I navigate the world and who I am, it's very different. And so I'm really preparing myself to become the handler I should be, and the handler that my dog deserves for me to be. And that means doing a lot of reading. It means really understanding the dog I'm going to get, thinking about how can I best enrich my dog's life, how can I strike a balance between what I need and what a dog needs, what can I do to increase the comfort level of my dog. And Guide Dogs, the organisation, will work with me a lot on this stuff in training, but I think having this time really allows me to build up so many of those skills in advance so that I'm ready. There's this kind of mentality amongst the general public that the qualifier for getting a guide dog is to be blind, and obviously that is a qualifier, but you're not entitled to a guide dog just on the grounds that you're blind. You have to be considered a suitable dog handler, and even having had a dog before does not automatically mean that you will be suitable for a second dog. things change. Like I said, people change in the 10 or so years, even 8 years really, if you look back to kind of retirement of your dog, since when you got your dog and when your dog retires. A lot can change in a person. Someone's physical mobility may decline and they may actually not be able to cope with the level of activity a young dog needs, and so they may not meet those requirements. But equally, guide dogs may look at a person and how they've worked with their dog and how they're responding during the assessments and think, actually this person is not coping that well, or is not doing what we would want them to do. A person may not go out that often, a person's lifestyle may change, all these things change. And so I was really aware that going through this process didn't mean that I had automatic entitlement to a dog. I still had to demonstrate that I was an appropriate dog handler, and so that was always in my mind when I went for these assessments. What do guide dogs need to see from me? And it's not going, oh well, I've had a dog so I'm going to be great. It's actually about going, this is what I learned from having a dog, and maybe this is what I still need to learn, and this is an area where I feel like I'm lacking in skills, or actually this is an area where I feel like my skills are really lend themselves to having a dog. I think I have good problem solving skills, and I think those really lend themselves to dog handling and just travel in general, because I'm able to look at a situation and think, okay, this isn't an ideal situation that we're in. How do we deal with this? And that actually kind of happened on Tuesday in my assessment. I was directing the dog instructor as if they were a dog, as they were walking beside me, and I directed them across a road, and then it turned out that actually the entire pavement was being dug up, so then I had to direct them back across the road and across a different crossing so we could walk further down to then cross back over. And it's skills like that, being able to think, okay, where am I in space? Here's where I need to be. This next bit is blocked off, so how do I get there? And I'm able to do that, and I think that is a skill that I can say is really helpful. But there are skills that I lack. I think I'm not necessarily a very focused person. I'm very focused in that I'm goal oriented. So I'm focused in the sense that I have goals, I have ambitions, I'm very ambitious, but I'm not very focused in day-to-day tasks. I have ADHD, and actually having a diagnosis of ADHD is really helping me, because I'm able to look at this and go, this isn't my personality, this isn't the sum of who I am, this isn't something that cannot change. Yes, I may always have ADHD, but actually, okay, I'm blind, so I can't read print, therefore I use Braille. Okay, I have ADHD, therefore my focus isn't always great, so what can I do to mitigate that? And that's actually something I'm already talking to guide dogs about, in terms of I would like to receive some of the reading now, even though I'm years away from my training, so that I can do some of this reading, because I know that when I'm in class I won't be able to work with my dog during the day and then have the focus to do that reading and really absorb it in the evening. And I'm able to say this because I know I have ADHD, and I'm able to kind of put those things in place, and I think that's really, really valuable for me, being able to do that and kind of already being able to look at what do I need. And Guide Dogs, the organisation, have been great. So the instructor I've spoken to has already asked me, what can we do to make this experience better for you? And I think that's such a amazing question to be asked, because it's not, well, this is our structure, you're not going to fit into it. It's how can we adapt our structure to you, knowing that we also need to make sure our dogs are at the centre of it. And one funny thing we kind of established is that my way of working, which is bursts of focus and really, I can't be expected to work on a task for 2 hours and remain focused, actually really lends itself to how dogs work, because a young dog can also not work for 2 hours and really maintain that focus. So actually it will benefit both myself and the dog. There's this big push within guide dogs now to building enrichment into your dog's life, and enrichment can involve all different things. It can involve free runnings where you let the dog off the lead to run. It can involve kind of puzzles that the dog has to work out, as toys. It can involve playtime. It can involve all these different things, and I, as someone with ADHD, needs kind of human enrichment, which can be going for a walk. It can be for me, I found actually meditation really helpful recently as a focus activity. So not the same activities for myself and my dog, but yeah, we kind of are going to work the same way. So that's been incredibly helpful to have those discussions now, and really for me to start thinking, what do I need? So what does training look like for myself and a dog? Well, it's years away, but what it will probably look like, or what it looks like at the moment, is I will go on class for 2 weeks. I will live in a hotel for 2 weeks, which Guide Dogs thankfully pays for, and I will be on class with several other blind people who are all being matched to dogs. So in some countries, guide dogs have their own campuses where you live there for a couple of weeks. Our guide dog organisation does not have that, so this is why we use hotels. So I'll be based out of a hotel, and Monday to Friday I will work with my dog and with the trainers, and this is kind of your core basic training. So everyone's going through the same training. You're looking at things like how do you walk with your dog, the different kinds of commands you give to your dog. You're looking at grooming your dog, enrichment, health for your dog, all these things you need to know as a handler, and you're kind of doing this together, but obviously doing individual training. So you won't, for example, be working in a group of 5 as you're walking down the street, because that would soon turn into chaos. But maybe you will work together for grooming. I don't know. I'm not on training yet, so I don't know that structure. But I would imagine there'll be an element of group stuff. And then, of course, you'll have dinner together and things like that. Then I'll go home for the weekend, then I'll come back for week 2, more of the same. Then I will go home with my dog and begin stage 2 of training, which is very much more individual training, where you train in your own environment, because every blind person has different needs and they will need to do different things with their dog. And it won't be that you go home and it's like, okay, great, you've got your dog, go and do everything in your normal life. Maybe you'll get told, yeah, you can do this one route for the first 2 weeks. And my first route will probably be across campus if I'm still studying. Depends how long it takes before I get my dog, because I'll need to get back to work. At the end of the day, I'll be a PhD student. I'll need to get back to the office and start working. And then you build in more and more routes until your trainer considers that you and your dog are ready to kind of go off into your normal life. So it builds in those stages to really adapt to you and to adapt to how do we best take care of a young dog who's been completely uprooted and thrust into this life of working with a handler, and they may also feel quite stressed about that, understandably so, I think. So that's kind of how training looks, and I think that's really exciting for me. I think that's great, but as I said, it's several years away. But I wanted to provide this update to kind of go over what my life is looking like in that respect. I will always be a cane traveller. You know, that first and foremost is how I travel as a blind person. And that's not to say I won't work my dog when I get it. Of course, when I get a dog, I will primarily work with my dog. But what I mean by this is I don't hang out my cane and say, well, I've forgotten how to travel. There may be times when travelling with a cane is the most suitable way. Times when my dog can't work, or situations where it's inappropriate to bring a dog. If I'm going to a gig and it's really loud, I won't be bringing a dog. And at the end of the day, a cane is the core tool of travel for blind people, and I'm never going to lose that, and it's always going to be a huge part of who I am and how I navigate the world. And I want to say this because there's this idea that canes are your training wheels and then you upgrade to a dog, and that's not the case at all. Canes are an amazing travel tool. Dogs are a great travel tool, and they suit different people, and sometimes both suit one person, as I think is the case for me. And so if you're that person, then you're very lucky, because you get to pick and choose what works best for you. I can't answer questions about what my training will look like beyond what I've already said, but if you do have questions, then of course feel free to ask. I'm always happy to answer questions as much as I can do.